Hello everyone, this is part 3 of the Grevit tutorial series. We've created this geometry and I showed you how to transfer some parameters with it. Now we're gonna go on and add a little bit more information to the curve that we created. It's also going to be a good opportunity to kind of show you the difference between different types of parameters that you can have in Revit. Text, numbers, dimensions, stuff like that. So for now, it's just a simple curve, and at the end of the day, we want to document the 3 points that make up that 3-point arc, that curve, and then we want to document its radius and arc length. So if you imagine you were to create that piece out of bent tube or something, you would need the length of that tube to cut it, and then the radius to bend it to. And then for assembling it in the field, imagine in the building like a piece of structure, you will need the 3 points, maybe just 1 or 2, it depends. For the sake of argument, I will create the 3 of them. So let's go back to our Rhino model, and then here's where we left off previously. So what we want to do next is we want to work with let's just hide all this for a second, because we want to be working with those vertical ones. So I'm just going to move these out of the way. Alright, so let's get started. Let's do something simple. Let's create a parameter for arc length. So obviously under curves there is a length component that we can use. So if we were to take all those curves and then graph them on input, we basically are getting a series of lengths, and then if we simplify them on the output, it gives us the desired tree structure that we want. Then again, it's just a matter of rounding those up, and we can just use the same components, so just control paste, control V, control C, control V for pasting and cutting, and then those don't have to be simplified here, and there you go. It takes it down and rounds it up to 1 decimal place. Once we have that, we want to go to Grevit and create a parameter, and this is going to be the value for that parameter. The parameter itself, we can call it arc length. So this is our parameter, and it will be added to the family and type component that we've already created there. So this will be the setup, and right now if we imported that into Revit, this would work pretty well. We will get a parameter length, arc length for it, but I want to also get a radius. This is a very important part of documenting this curve. To get a radius of a curve, there isn't a simple formula like with arc length, component. So we're gonna have to do a little bit of a tricky process. So we're gonna first need to evaluate our curves. So you want to reparametricize those, and not flatten but graph them input, and then we want to evaluate them at the midpoint. So let's put in a panel, evaluate those at the midpoint. And what it does, it creates a point. You can see there's a new point right in the middle of each one of those. So once we have that, it also gives us actually we don't want to evaluate it, I'm sorry, my bad. It's not the evaluate, but it's the curvature component, I'm sorry. So it's still, the T input is the parameter that we want to evaluate in the middle. It's just a curve. What we're trying to achieve is we're trying to create figure out the curvature at the midpoint. So once we have that, that gives us curvature vector right in the middle. So we can go to Vector tab and decompose that vector. And then if we create a vector from the XYZ, we'll be able to get a vector length, which is ultimately what we are looking for. So this is kind of a silly process, but that's what we're going to need. And then once we have that vector length, we can go to math, and if we divide 1, so I'm just going to copy paste this, type in 1. If we divide 1 by that vector length, that gives us a desired radius that we're looking for each one of those curves. And you can see that if they were to be rounded up to 0 decimal places, they will all come out to be 14,240 roughly. So let's do that. Let's round them up. Let's see where we're at after we round those up. Actually, I want to round this specific one to 0 decimal places. It wants this to be a number. So once we do that, we should be getting a whole integer. Every one of those is at the same, and then we're just going to make sure that we keep the tree structure the same. Alright, this looks pretty good to me. So this will be our radius. So let's create another parameter. Call this radius. This will be parameter name. These are the values that we just created. And now since we have 2 parameters going into this one, we actually want to weave them together, because what we really want is to make sure that both arc length and radius are specified for each one of those individually. So each one of them has to be in a separate branch of a tree, so you can see the pattern that we're following. Alright, this looks good. Plug it into parameter. Alright, now the only thing that we have to do is make sure that we have those 2 radius and arc length parameters created and added to the family in Revit. So let's go into Revit. Let's edit this family and then add a parameter. Let's go to shared parameters and then create a new parameter, and one of them was called radius, and then another parameter was called arc length. So once we have those, make them an instance for arc length, and then we're going to add radius, make it an instance. There you go. Let's load that into the project, override the existing version. Let's delete it since the update function doesn't work yet. And then let's give it a shot. Let's test it. So here we are, and each one of those tubes has an arc length and radius specified. So the radius is the same, 14,240, and then arc length is different for each one of them. Oh, one thing that I'm noticing, an important step that we forgot. These are displaying radius in feet. The reality is that we're working in millimeters in the project. So let's go back. We have to do the conversion for each one of those before we can export them, so that we are in feet. So let's see how that changes our, yes. So we want to do the conversion before we round those up. And then use that number. There you go. And then same thing for arc length. So let's do the conversion and then use that. There you go. Alright, let's export this again. I'm going to delete all these. Import. Let's see how that worked. Yep, much better. So it's 47 feet and then 26 for length, and then we can see really long ones. They're about 39 feet long and 47 feet radius still. So it's pretty consistent. All of them are the same radius, they different lengths. Alright, so this is how you create length parameters. It has short parameters added to the family, and then information exported out of Grasshopper. And then since they're short parameters, we're going to be able to schedule them. Stay tuned. I'm going to do another step where we're going to collect the XYZ points, and I'm also going to show you a alternative way of doing a radius calculation. So as you saw me do using multiple components, with using vectors and curvature, and it's kind of a little bit of inefficient. So I think I might be able to show you a different way just for your use. It's not that it's better, but I'll give you another option. So stay tuned, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.